Today I'm reviewing the KZ ZA12 in-ear monitors with 6 drivers per side, 2 dynamic drivers, 4 balanced armatures. Let's get it. What's cracking, audio fans? It's David here from Prime Audio Reviews. Now, we haven't heard, well, I haven't heard of the reptilian overlords for quite a while, but as always, they have been busy. I haven't had enough time available to check out the other models that have come out recently, but when I got offered the ZA12, I was intrigued. I thought, let's go, let's have a look at it. So let me tell you a bit about it. 6 drivers per side. We've got 2 dynamic drivers, so dual dynamic drivers, and 4 balanced armatures. And this is coming in at a price of around $63. There is a slightly cheaper version that comes without the tuning switches. We've got the standard KZ environment-friendly box, supposedly, and the same sparse, somewhat pitiful accessories, three pairs of silicone ear tips and a silver-plated copper cable. This is what the IEMs look like. So it's nice to see some consistency in the ZA styling line. So yeah, it's not too far off. It's obviously an evolution of previous ZA models. And here, because I got the tuning version, these are the tuning switches, 4 per side. Potential 16 possible sound profiles, but in reality it's basically only 4 different ones. But this is what they look like. The build quality feels pretty good, but we're over the $50 mark, so you expect a bit more. I wish they would just provide a somewhat better cable for their higher end products. I know it's funny saying higher end for a $60 IEM, but that is the way it goes. Anyway, they are super comfortable in the ears, they fit well, and with all that said, let's just get right into the sound. I will say that the impedance is 45 ohms, slightly higher than average, with a sensitivity of 103 decibels. So you do need to pump a little more power into these. I would suggest at minimal a dongle DAC. You probably won't get the optimal performance straight out of a smartphone or a laptop. So what kind of a sound profile are we looking at? Well, I'm only going to really talk about the one sound profile that I preferred, which is the switch one in the on position, which just bumps up the bass a little bit. But even with that setting, the bass is, well, the mid bass is satisfying enough. It's fairly punchy, it's nice and clean, it's well defined, but there is not a lot of sub bass or subterranean bass action going on. So when you hit those, when a track or recording hits those sub bass notes, you can hear the tone, but you don't get that real big physical rumble. So we've got a nice tight and articulate low end that prioritizes precision over brute force. Bass lines feel nice and clean and controlled. There is some subtle warmth that adds organic richness without bleeding into the mid-range. Sub-bass rolls off gently, as I said, but without that visceral or physical rumble, and that actually works quite well for certain music genres like acoustic and rock. But where the bass excels is in its mid-bass punch. It's got a satisfying weight and a nice rounded body, so a slightly blunted attack, which gives it a naturalness. So kick drums have a textured thud, and bass guitars have got a nice bit of body as well. It's kind of a Goldilocks balance, enough heft or weight to feel engaging, enough discipline to avoid being overbearing. Then in the mid-range, we've got nice smooth vocals without any graininess. Instruments like acoustic guitars and pianos have got a pretty natural timbre, pretty impressive for something around this price in terms of timbre. There's no metallic sheen, there's no artificial edge. It's kind of lush, organic, mid-range presentation. It feels nice and honest. Vocals sit slightly, ever so slightly back, but really they're not recessed because that bass is so tame. But there's no shoutiness in the mid-range. It's got a relaxed yet engaging presence. heaps of clarity, plenty of spaciousness in that mid-range. It lets layered arrangements breathe effortlessly, and even in busy tracks, it doesn't really get congested. It stays nice and controlled and maintains its composure and overall resolution. There's no nasal or honky pitfalls in the mid-range. I would say overall the mids are fairly neutral in their tuning. It's a mid-range that just it performs. There's no drama in the mid-range, just pretty good fidelity again for something at this price. And then for the treble's nice and crisp and airy. It's got impressive detail retrieval without any harshness, without any grain or sibilance. Cymbals and hi-hats shimmer with natural texture, and we've got pretty good treble extension. So the highs add a sense of openness to the soundstage, especially good for jazz and acoustic music, which feels nice and vibrant and immersive. And while the treble does lean slightly forward, like I said, no sibilance and it's pretty smooth. However, some people might find this tuning a little bit treble forward or a little bit fatiguing, but for me, I don't have any problem with it at all. Gone are the days of that scratchy metallic KZ treble. Nowadays, the quality of the treble is much improved. It just depends how you like your level of forwardness in terms of the overall tonal balance. And then for the soundstage, look, the technical performance is pretty impressive. We've got a reasonably spacious soundstage. It's not the widest in its class, but it avoids feeling cramped. It's nice and cohesive. It's not crowded at all. There's enough depth and air to create some decent layering and, in a 3D holographic type sense. Instruments and vocals occupy their own distinct spaces. But I'll go back to the detail retrieval because it is quite outstanding. So subtle nuances come through cleanly, and paired with strong instrument separation and that solid resolution, this one, the ZA12, handles busy tracks without any muddling or smearing. Now we'll do a couple of comparisons. We're going to start with the Truthear Zero Red. So you Crin fans, here we go. Now the ZA12's bass is leaner than some of the other KZ models. Think sort of Diet Cola or Diet Pepsi compared to KZ's usual double espresso. So it's a bit tighter and lighter in the bass, but it's nice and textured. It lacks that chest thump or that physicality, but at the same time that makes these great for that is the ZA12 makes it great for acoustic and indie fans who hate any bloatiness or overly boosted lows or mid and upper bass. The Zero Red, on the other hand, it's got a fairly Harman neutral tuning. The bass does deliver deeper, fuller bass, especially in the sub bass. It is a very well controlled bass, and that is due to sort of a attenuated upper bass. So you've got heaps of sub bass, heaps of rumble when a track has it, but it's a little bit lacking in the mid and upper bass where a lot of the groove and sort of emotiveness comes from. It's like a subwoofer with good manners. It's impactful but never rude, but at the same time it's not going to be your best friend. It just comes across as a little bit dry, a little bit thin in the lower mids, and if you turn the volume up it can also get a little bit bright in the upper mid range. Now let's pull in the KZ ZS10 Pro 2. It's got one dynamic driver and 4 balanced armatures. Nice crisp highs, nice punchy bass, and an adjustable bass thanks to the switches that it has, similarly to the ZA12. So both got the tunable versions here. The ZS10 Pro 2, however, with the right configuration, can be quite the bass monster, but it is actually a really good quality bass. It's a little more V-shaped. It's got a little bit of extra sparkle in the treble and a bit of extra thump in the lows. The soundstage on the ZS10 Pro 2 feels a little bit wider than the ZA12. So if you're into a sort of a more lively and fun tuning, the ZS10 Pro 2 is the winner here. On the other hand, the ZA12, a little bit more balanced, mostly due to that more controlled bass or attenuated bass. It focuses more on clarity and cohesion. The bass is still present, but it's way less aggressive. The mids feel a little bit more forward on the ZA12, so it's a better pick if you're into vocals and acoustic music and you're not averse to some forward treble, because the ZA12 does have a somewhat forward treble. Not so much the perceived forwardness because of that attenuated bass. But actually, if you're going to ask me which one I prefer, I would actually take the ZS10 Pro 2, because I think with all the switches in the off position, it is fairly neutral in its presentation, but still got enough body and richness to sound natural. But if you bump those first two switches on or up, then you're in bass territory, bass head almost territory, and it's a really fun IEM, and it's just overall superb for the price, which nowadays you could probably get it for like 35 or 30 even dollars, US dollars that is. But circling back to the KZ ZA12, this is a pretty good set. I forgot to mention the driver flex, so there is a bit of driver flex. For me, it's only in the left side, and it's only when I'm inserting or adjusting the earpiece in my ear, you can hear a bit of a click click now and then when the driver flexes back and forth. But apart from that, the only other drawback is a little bit of a lack of authority in the sub bass. So once again, the reptilian overlords have created quite the impressive IEM. I think the ZS10 Pro 2 is still the better value, but if you are averse to extra bass, then this one might be the way for you to go. Having said that, it's time to wrap it up. So if you like the video, give it that thumbs up, Pa Family audiophile style. And if you would like to support the channel, and enable me to keep creating content like this, check out my Patreon link or the other YouTube join link, whatever, down below. If you're new here, consider hitting that subscribe button before you go. And until next time, I'll see you later.